Hi, and welcome to Running Your Stories. It's been a while since I've done a podcast. There's been a lot of things going on. The main thing being in 2021, I've been injured quite a lot. It's really messed with my head, and at times I've been in quite a negative place. And one of the things I've always strove for with Running Your Stories is to be positive, to encourage people, to really big up the running community and things that people are doing. A lot of the time over the past months, I haven't felt like I've been able to do that. So I've taken a bit of a break from podcasting, give myself a rest, make sure that I wasn't coming on and being negative about anything. So the injuries, tendinitis, particularly in my left ankle, has continued right into 2022. But I'm not somebody who likes to sort of lie down and take life as it's thrown at me. I'm the kind of person who likes to stand up and fight and find another way. So I decided I was going to take on doing the spine race. It's had a place in it, the winter spine, 268 miles on the Pennine Way in the middle of winter. Because thanks to my physio James, we worked out that hiking actually doesn't trigger the tendinitis. And I tested this out a little, I did a 33-mile hike around the Haworth Hobble route with Gary Chapman, and sure enough, no tendinitis. So that was a good sign. And on the back of that, really, I planned to do the spine race. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk about today. Trying to get back into the podcasting. Today, I'm going to tell my story, just myself. Bit of a monologue, so hopefully it's interesting. A few people have been asking me about it, and I've got a few other people getting lined up to talk about the race in different ways, about the experience, about the mental side. I'm also going to do at least one podcast and video about the kit, the equipment, what worked, what didn't work. There's a lot to talk about. It's such a fascinating race. And I was trying to think about where to start talking about this, other than the intro as to why there's been a break from the podcasting. And there's two possible places. Maybe let's go all the way back to 2017. So January 2017, the mountain rescue team that I'm in, Home Valley Mountain Rescue Team, set up a tent at Brun Clough and got a big burner on, heated up lots of hot water. And for all these crazy people that were coming through on this race, the Spine Challenger and the Spine Race, we took turns, volunteered in shifts, and we handed out cups of tea and biscuits. And I turned up on the Saturday, people were coming through on the Challenger, and I saw this guy, James Penson, who I'd met before, and thought, wow, that's hardcore, doing 108 miles, and he looks quite cheerful. He didn't want to come into the tent for a sit down, so I just said hello. I actually completely forgot about seeing him then. And then on the Sunday, handing out these cups of tea, and I'm really in awe of these athletes, these people on the Saturday doing the Challenger 108 miles, and then on the Sunday they're coming through and they're doing 256 miles in the middle of winter. And the weather was pretty atrocious, as it often is in January in the UK. And this guy came in with a mountain rescue jacket on, so felt a bit of a affinity to him, and we started chatting. Duncan Buchanan, my wife wants to send Duncan a very large bill, because Duncan sat there having something to eat. We put some hot water in one of his rehydrated meals, and I was saying to him, I think this race is really amazing. It sort of caught my imagination, but I'm not much of a runner. I've just recently been getting back into running after many years not running. So I'd maybe been running 5 or 6 months by this time. I run about 10 miles at a time, and there's just no way I could take on something like the Spine Race or the Spine Challenger. And Duncan says, hey, you don't need to be able to run. You can do it. You can look after yourself in the hills. You've got the skills if you're in mountain rescue. You can do it, Kev. Go on, give it a go. So that was a fateful conversation. I decided there and then, that day, that a year later I'd be stood on the start line of the Challenger, or the Mountain Rescue Challenge, which I was qualified to enter, and I had to build up my running. So this really is my running story, whereby at that time, January 2017, I was running 10 miles on my longest runs. It took me until I think it was possibly as long as June till I ran a half marathon. September before I ran a marathon. Then October I ran my first ultra, which was only a 30-mile ultra. And what I noticed to that was first of all, that the marathon was a trail marathon. The half marathon was a road half, then a trail marathon, and then trail ultra. And I noticed how much the people in the community changed as I went up the distances. And that fateful White Rose Ultra that I did, I met lifelong friends, particularly Kim and Howard and Paul, that I met in that race, that we've stayed in touch ever since and support each other. Howard, of course, just came third in the inaugural running of the Spine Challenger North. So, you know, and he was standing helping out at the finish line that day because he wasn't fit enough to run. So, yeah, how times change. So, yeah, I did those, went up to my first Spine Challenger and absolutely destroyed myself doing 108 miles. Really wasn't ready for it. Went out way too fast. Considering where my capabilities were at that time. Enjoyed running with Joe Parsons, running up in the top 3 of the MRT challenge for mile after mile, until that was it. I was destroyed. Then dragged myself to the finish with what to my mind's a reasonably slow finish of 46 hours, and really had to dig deep and go into some dark places to do that. And kind of was very impressed with myself that I'd run 100 miles or covered 100 miles on foot, but kind of disappointed how negative I got and how much I had to drag myself through. And I was in a lot of pain, and the Cam High Road was kind of a thing of nightmares. And so I sort of made a promise to myself that, okay, you won't go for the full spine race yet. Go back and do the Challenger again, and really do it in a style that you can be proud of yourself. So that's what I did. I mean, through that year, I did the Oldham Way Ultra, where again carried on making good friends with Fiona in particular in that one. Then did the Hardmoors 60, my first Hardmoors event. Fantastic events, really well organised. And did the White Rose 60 then, so 2 laps of the White Rose Ultra circuit. And that one was actually tough because it went fairly close to my house, and I was only doing it because it was kind of convenient. Didn't really have that passion for it, and 60 miles is a long way to go without the passion sort of driving you through there. But then came around to my second Spine Challenger, and you know, went off just a little bit slower, a bit more experienced, a lot more miles in my legs. Each time my kit was getting smaller and lighter. I mean, that first Spine Challenger had a 40-litre backpack. Now I was on a 25-litre race vest, which, you know, makes a big difference. The weight had come down a lot, and it was still a tough race, as everything always is on the Spine. The weather was atrocious. I ran on my own for almost the entire time. Took 10 hours off my time, and did a fast enough time that the year before I would have won the MRT challenge, and came in 5th place. So that's the way these things go. You can control your own pace, you can control what you do, but you can't control what anybody else does. So there's 4 people who were faster than me that day. So I finished in 5th. But that was really good. Just under 36 hours, which is not a bad time for a spine challenger, especially us finishing in hard row rather than hose. So then looking forward and say, right, I've got to go for the full spine next. So a few more events along the way. Doing the Lakeland 3-day event was a good way sort of back into things. Did my first Lakeland 100 with a really good time that I was very happy with. 27 hours 37 minutes, and then did the Hard Worlds 80 on the World's Way, run by John and Shirley, part of the Hardmore series, and came 5th in that. So I was really on, and this is 2019 now, you know, I'm really in cracking running form of my life. So I went into the spine race in 2020 and went off trying to control the pace the way I had in the 2019 Challenger, but I still went off too fast. I didn't control the pace enough. I was doing okay though. I didn't really smash it. I got myself under control after a while. Started bumping into some great people. I had a chat with Simon Feller, who was giving me excellent advice, saying, you know, it's a very, very long way to go. You've really got to take care of yourself. And I was listening to that. Then bumped into Gwyn Stokes, and we had a good chat. And then coming out of checkpoint 1, bumped into Sabs, Sabrina Vergi, and we spent some time chatting away into the night. And then all these guys got together and all seemed to want to suddenly speed up. So I'll let them go. And not long off after that, coming down that really rough terrain, heading down towards sort of Lothersdale area, my foot went down a hole and turned my ankle 90 degrees. Really bad sprain, and I knew in that moment that there's no way I would be completing the spine race in 2020. I did, however, decide, look, let's get as much as I can out of this race. Let's, you know, learn what I can, be as prepared as I can for next time. And especially as this was going to be my first ever DNF. I'd never not finished a race before. So I pushed on up towards Malham. By the time I got to Malham, favouring my left leg, I then twisted my left knee quite badly. It was extremely painful. I had tendinitis coming on in both shins. And so I managed to hobble up to Hawes, and got into the checkpoint there. Had a sleep, had some food, took painkillers, saw the medics, strapped everything up. Really did the best we could, and I pushed on over Great Shunner Fell. By the time I got down into Thwaite, I was going so slow. I was getting cold. I was wet. It was really miserable, and I just didn't feel safe being out on the hill any further. Bumped into Harjan, who was out taking photographs, and he managed to contact the safety team for me, and called it a day there. So I wanted to jump straight back on the horse, so signed up to the 2020 summer spine, and then COVID hit. So 2020 summer spine was off. Managed to get a last minute place in the 2021 winter spine, and then that got COVIDed off as well. So through this time, I continued running. I'd done the inaugural organised by myself, James and Jim. We did the Stainland 105, which was 105 miles around the local area. And this was our way of doing the virtual Lakeland 100, because the Lakeland 100 wasn't on. So that was in 2020. That went well. It wasn't fast, but it was never meant to be. It was an adventure. I was doing things like that and really keeping fit and working very hard, working with a coach. I was very fit coming into 2021. And then, I don't know, the the stress of everything, of continuously training, of the whole COVID situation, of work, of family life, the amount of stress on my body just seemed to tip over the edge, and I was just constantly injured in 2021. All kept getting tendinitis again and again, and then I started easing back on the running to let the tendinitis heal and started feeling a bit better. I had a place in the Lakeland 100, so I went and did that, 7 hours slower than I'd done it before, and struggling, really struggling, and I had to pick myself up 5 or 6 times. Met some good people on the way around there, Mike in particular, who bumped into again on the spine, and then wonderfully Kim popped up to tell me not to quit, and that was enough to see me through to the finish. So I was worried about having 2 out of 3 DNFs at that time, but I got away from that, which was good, and sort of got things back on track. But every time I started to try and run any kind of distance or any kind of regularity, first of all the tendinitis would come back, and then once that was gone, I was noticing actually that my tibant muscles were really fatigued, and I was trying to get them to recover. In any run, at first I would still get pain in the tibant muscles, and then I got it down to the pain would come about 2 days later, and then I got it to the stage where I could run and actually there was no pain, and there was about 6 weeks to go to the spine. So there was really no way I was going to be able to run in the spine with essentially no training. So through this, I'd done a lot of hiking. I've been training my dog over the last year as my adventure buddy, so this was just great. We'll just go on lots of dog walks, me carrying a pack all the time. We had a fantastic night out on Crossfell for Gary Chapman's birthday. I went and stayed in Greg's hut. I carried a 12 kilogram pack up there that night, doing lots of things like that, doing some great strength work at the gym, HD3 Fitness, where I go. Simon Courtney helping me out with the strength work there, and so I was feeling strong and fit, but nowhere near my peak, and decided, right, let's go and hike the spine. I worked it out on paper. You didn't have to be going fast to come in with quite a respectable time by hiking. If you could maintain 5 kilometers an hour or 3 miles an hour, you could actually make it all the way into the top 3. If you could maintain that. Of course, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to maintain that through some of the bogs and some of the really steep terrain and things. You'd have to put in quite an effort, but it's a target. It's something to go for. It's something to try. So yeah, we'll get round to race day. It's the spine, so it's cold, it's wet, it's drizzly, there's snow up on top of Kinder. So I'd sort of been down and registered. The registration process with particular times to come down for was very smooth, very quick, straight through there. Got myself home again. My wife Val gave me a lift down in the morning ready to start the race, and set off hiking. And my friend Sabs had said, yeah, I'll stick with you, Kev, certainly for the start of it, and ran away from me on the start line, which wasn't unexpected. But that was good. I would let everybody go, all kinds of people that I knew there, with Simon and John Boothman and Anna and Richard. I let all those people run off at the start, and I settled into my pace, my plod, chatting to the people around me, taking it easy, looking after my body, making sure I could eat and drink, and that really was the strategy that I settled into. So I had a new race pack now onto the Montane Gecko 20 litre pack, which I found to be absolutely fantastic, and I made sure I could stash my poles, even new poles, the Black Diamond Ultra poles, stash them in the front of the pack, so that my hands are free, so I can eat and I can drink. So I was eating and drinking plenty. I had a cup clipped on the front of the pack, so that when I got to the mountain rescue guys at Torside, I can just unclip my cup, get a cup of tea, walk with a cup of tea. I don't need to worry about disposing of one of their cups into a bin or anything else like that. I knew what I was carrying. I knew where my rubbish was going to go within my pack, into my pockets, where to empty it out, and everything. Yeah, it was all going really smoothly. I was actually up on time. I was this part of the race I was doing about 6 kilometers an hour as a fast hike. Even though some of these, up ladder rocks and things is quite hard going, but on the flat sections I was getting enough pace up to average about 6 kilometers an hour. And yeah, got up to let's say got up near Brunclough. In fact, Wesleyan first. Simona from the mountain rescue team came out to say hello, which was amazing. Up at Brunclough, my wife and kids were there. Fiona was there. Sue was there. Just great to see people faces, friendly faces. Just lifts you so much on these things. And just thinking back to 2020. In 2020, I had been trying not to push myself too hard, but actually, after I crossed the Wesleyan Valley, I'd had a bit of a sort of energy crash, and just when I bumped into Lottie and her dog Jeremy, and I'd had to walk and eat for a while, and this time no energy crash. I was really taking care of myself. It was going well. So yes, it took me longer this time to get up to Hebden here to the checkpoint than it had last time, but that was on the plan. I was about an hour up on my own schedule. So Ian Mayer, who was volunteering there, I'd been involved in rescuing him from his summer spine when he'd had a serious accident, and so him at the checkpoint had arranged with Anne-Marie, the checkpoint manager, that he'd come and look after me, and that was really lovely. He was absolutely spot on, because when you come into these checkpoints on the spine, everybody looks after you, everybody takes care of you. You feel like an elite athlete. It's really addictive. You want to go back. You want to be treated like that way again. So yeah, I had the checkpoint manager and Anne-Marie Lord coming out to say hello. Millie Troop, Anna's daughter and friend, came out to say hello. She was also volunteering, and it's just lovely seeing people, hearing their words of encouragement. And I remember I was just starting to get a little bit of discomfort in 2 of my toes at this point. I felt like the toenails were being pushed around a little bit in my shoes, and took my shoes and socks off, taped them up a bit, and set off again. And so off I went into the night, bumping into other people in the race, having a chat, and got up to Lothersdale. I was feeling very sleepy, so the fantastic Lothersdale official and unofficial checkpoint put on by Keithley and Craven Tri Club, organised by Gary Chapman, run by Catherine and co. And these people are just wonderful. Volunteering to be up all night just to give. I had some soup and a cup of tea, and I had a sort of 10-minute snooze in a chair. And it's just great having a comfortable chair, a blanket over you, a safe place where you can close your eyes for a little while, and you know nothing untoward's going to happen to you. So that was my little power nap to get me through that night, and it worked. And I was there in Lothersdale with no significant pain in my legs. There was no twisted ankle. There was no tendinitis coming on by this stage. That was really good. So pushed on from there, got up to heading from there towards Malham, and ended up hiking along with Lizzie, who ended up finishing as third lady. Really lovely, down to earth. We had a lovely long chat. I have no idea what about, but that's what tends to happen in these races. But yeah, we were hiking at a decent pace. Good few hours spent there. We'd been chatting with other people along the way as well, but there's a few people sort of stand out. And then I think Lizzie popped into the toilet in Malham, and I continued on up. That's when I caught up to Gary at this point, who was not having the best of times. It's fair to say. And then just ahead of him was Bill Johnson and Laura, who I didn't know at this point in time. But getting into Malham Tarn, I got chatting with Laura, who was struggling a little bit with her back. We had a little bit of a chat, and then coming out of Malham Tarn, I came out with Bill Johnson, and we had a good chat. We'd never properly met before, even though we actually live quite close to each other, and we're moving a lot of the same circles of friends and things. So that was really good. Went up Fountains Fell together, came down pretty close to each other, and I was just kind of feeling something happening on my feet and my toes coming down Fountains Fell. And then we went up Pen again, and again we're pretty much together the whole way up Pen again. And then Bill was going to jog down Pen again, and I'd hike as usual, so he was going to be ahead of me. But at this point I realised that my feet were in tatters. It was really, really painful. I could feel blisters on probably 6 toes, on my heel, the like of which I just never usually get. The underside of my foot was hurting. It was really, really, really painful. So I was coming down Pen again, heading into Horton, and to be honest, I was in so much pain. I really wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to continue at all. So I messaged my wife, and I sent a message to Kim, because she's always so supportive. And then I thought, I knew my friend Mel was on the safety team, and I was wondering if she might be in Horton. So I just dropped her a message as well, saying, "Whereabouts are you, Mel?" And it turns out Mel was in Horton, and she decided to have a bit of a wander up the track to see what was going on. And so I made a plan as I was walking down that track. I would get down to a safe place. I would take some paracetamol. I'd take my shoes off. And the reason I wasn't going to take my shoes off on the hill is because I didn't know whether they would go back on or not. And then I'd do what I could to sort my feet out and assess the situation from there. See if the shoes would go back on. I've of course got spare socks, got my blister kit and everything in my pack. So that's what I did. Got down to the school in Horton, where the safety team had their sort of monitoring station, and Lizzie and Laura had passed me on their way down, and then Laura had been in there getting some treatment because she'd face planted apparently, but she was okay. And so it turned out if you needed some medical treatment, you were allowed to sit just inside the doorway of the school rather than just outside the doorway. So that was good. I sat just inside the doorway to sort my feet out. Must have been there a while. Mel made me a few cups of tea, laughed at me a lot, looked quite sick when I was bursting blisters. And yeah, I taped up my feet, did what I could, and then put fresh socks on. So what seemed to have happened was that I had some Gecko Wear waterproof socks, and I'd been out in all kinds of bad conditions with these, trying out the kit as you do, and I'd never got water through them, not once, not a tiny bit. And I had liner socks, which I've also been using for a while with different types of waterproof socks, and they've always been really comfortable, really good on my feet. But what had happened is, this being the spine race, loads of water had come through my waterproof socks. My liner socks were absolutely saturated, and they just viciously ripped my feet to shreds. So I had blisters all over the place, blisters in places I don't usually get blisters. So I had another pair of waterproof socks in my bag, and I put them on without the liner socks, put Vaseline on my feet, tried to tape toenails back on to stop them moving around, because there was still some way to go before hose where I could get more help. Just did the best I could with everything. Drained all the blisters that I could, and got my shoes back on and squelched on my way. So from Horton, it's up onto the Cam High Road, which I've had nightmares with in the past. This wasn't the worst weather I've seen on there. It wasn't the best weather either. But yeah, up the Cam High Road and then down into Hawes. I think I was on my own through that time. Plenty of time to think. So I came into Hawes, went with my plan. So the plan I had in my drop bag, and I had a carrier bag for like replacement food for each checkpoint, and on that carrier bag, it's sellotaped on there, actually written on waterproof paper, which I thought was a nice idea, was like my checklist. So if I was perfectly on target, I had the time I would arrive in the checkpoint, both in elapsed time and the time of the day of the week, and then it said glasses. So I was wearing contact lenses in the race, and actually contact lenses worked fine for me in the race, because every time I got to the checkpoint, one of the first things I would do is take out the contact lenses, put my glasses on, give my eyes a rest, and do that as early as I can to get as much rest as I can. I then had a protein recovery shake, so I had a flask to make that up with, and little tubs from takeaway, which were almost exactly the right measure for a 500ml drink. So I had one of those for each checkpoint. So I'd ask somebody to make that up. Then I would go through and check the charge on my watch, my phone, my GPS, my head torch, switch batteries over, put things on charge. Then at the same time, of course, people are bringing you food, and then I refill my pack. Refill all the food in my pack, empty the rubbish out, refill my bottles in my pack, and I'd always do that before I would sleep or switch off in any way, so that it's ready to go. It's not something I need to remember when I wake up. So like with my head torch, using a Neo Plus, but I had 3 batteries, so I'd have a battery on the torch, a spare battery, and a battery in the drop bag. And the plan with that is that when I then get into Hawes, and the battery that's on my head torch now is halfway down, 3/4 of the way down, I take that off, put that on a charge pack, put that in my drop bag, put the fresh battery on my torch, and I've still got my spare. So I've got a full battery on my torch and my spare. It's all, my torch will go in my coat pocket, because then it's there as soon as I'm putting my coat back on, my waterproof jacket, and the spare is in my pack where it's supposed to be, nicely stashed away. So that's the kind of thing I was doing, get all those things done straight away. But now, because my feet were trashed, I had the added pleasure and priority of get there, get the tape all stripped off, get my feet cleaned if I was going to have a clean, and then arrange with the medics when tape would be getting put back on. So tape off this time was pretty easy, because it was the tape I'd put on in Horton. So I think this time I probably did have a shower and then went for a sleep. And then as soon as I got up, got food brought to me while I sat with the medics, and the medics taped my feet up. And I think I changed shoes at this point as well. So I'd started off in La Sportiva crossovers, and one of the things that I found when I put on the fresh waterproof socks, and then again, when I put on the fresh waterproof socks, of course, as soon as I put my feet in the shoes, the water kind of coming through the waterproof socks straight away. In fact, I'm trying to remember, did I change? I can't remember if I changed shoes at Hawes or even at Middleton. Anyway, at some point I changed out of my La Sportivas and into a pair of Innovate Rock Lights, Gore-Tex ones, actually, just because they were on special offer on sports shoes, and they seemed like a good backup shoe. But they actually had a slightly bigger toe box. So that was better, but the damage was already done. But as the race went on, with the care of the medics in the spine race, keep changing waterproof socks and into other shoes, my feet actually got better than they were at the worst point in Horton, and they never got that bad again. And that's a really interesting thing, that your feet can be really, really bad and really, really painful, and you can take care of them on the hill, and they can actually improve while the race is going on. And I'd have found that quite hard to believe if I hadn't experienced it myself. trying to get hold of some more photographs of the state my feet were in. I've got there's a few photographs along the way of kind of how good my feet were and how they looked with all the tape on later on. But there were some taken in Horton, so I'll try and get hold of them and share those around just for everybody's amusement. So yeah, so it's working through that checklist, get some sleep, get some more food, get the tape on, get all the kit on, and get out again. So by this time, I was kind of behind my ideal schedule, but the ideal schedule was just there to give a bit of structure, a bit of thought, some ideas as to what might go on. But I'd arrived into the dark in Hawes, and I went out and it was still dark, so I wasn't losing any daylight. So that was an important thing. So up over Great Shun I fell down into Thwaite, and I was very emotional actually getting down into Thwaite, because that's the way I DNF'd in 2020. So I sent some WhatsApp messages out, recorded voice message to my wife and kids and things, and don't think anybody got it, but I was emotional, and it meant a lot to me passing by the place where I'd DNF'd before. And then on to the next kind of small section between coming out of sort of up from Thwaite. I'd not actually done at all before, and I'd looked at it on the map and thought, it's relatively flat. It's not too undulating. It should be a reasonably quick section, but as you keep finding on the Pennine Way, it was rocky and difficult, and no way to get any decent pace going on that. But we're into the daylight by now. It was certainly a pleasant landscape to look around, and then you get out from that and into the more open land as you head towards the Tan Hill Inn, and that was great. A couple of the safety team guys there in the Tan Hill invited me in, and they got hot water on the go, so I could rehydrate a meal and enjoy that, and tried not to get too warm and cozy. Didn't want to hang around for too long, and I left there just before Michael Burke, who we've been Facebook friends for a while, and it was only on the Lakeland 100 in the summer we'd actually met finally in person, very briefly, but then we ended up spending the afternoon hiking through the hills together, and it was really great to get to know Michael a bit and have a chat, and we were together most of the way into Middleton, and yeah, that was a real pleasure. And then I got into Middleton. I can't remember if I was just on my way out again, having my second set of food, or still on my first set. Must have been on my second set of food actually. And then Laura came in, and Mike. So Mike is one of the guys that I teamed up with on the Lakeland 100 to try and find some way of pushing forward when I thought I was completely done and trashed. And we sort of hiked, jogged together through a couple of checkpoints, and then he actually DNF'd. And so it was a real pleasure to see Mike, and he'd now teamed up with Laura, who actually had helped just a little bit as I'd got into Hawes. I'd found her staggering around and kept an eye on her, made sure she got safely into the checkpoint. So it was really lovely actually to see them two together. They then worked as a team all the way to the finish, which was absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant building these friendships out on the trails. So yeah, into Middleton. So last time I'd arrived in Middleton, I'd been taken in by the safety team and been fairly miserable. So now to walk into Middleton myself, into that checkpoint was fantastic. Still no major issues going on with my legs. And I think I got into Middleton just without using a head torch. It was just getting dark, and then so yeah, got some sleep, got myself sorted out, headed out from Middleton. And so we'd heard rumours in Middleton of a diversion around Cauldron Snout because of some ice making things dangerous. And there's just a little bit along the river and into Cauldron Snout that I've not done before. and so I wasn't really sure exactly where this diversion was going to be, but headed out from Middleton. I think Michael was ahead of me, and John Boothman, as it turned out, which I didn't realise at the time, and headed out and making some good progress there, sort of enjoying myself along the trails, and then came to this really strange sign. So there was like a fallen down fence and a sign on the ground kind of attached to this knocked down fence pointing into a random field. And I thought, well, I know there is a diversion. Is this it? Surely? I mean, where does this doesn't go anywhere? I looked on the map and it did say there was a public footpath in that field, although there was no public footpath sign or any kind of footfall, kind of footprints or anything. So I initially just continued up the Pennine Way, just a little way while I thought about it, and I sort of zoomed out on the maps and had a look, and then I realised that actually it was going to take you through some fields and then onto the road, and the road would take you up and around Cauldron Snout and then drop you back down into it. So it was more elevation, maybe a little bit longer, but on smooth tarmac. So overall probably wouldn't take much longer. But that was the diversion. So I walked back to the diversion and headed through there. And there was a young lad that I'd just passed, who I met later, but apparently when he got there, this diversion sign had flipped over in the wind, and it was no longer pointing in any kind of sensible direction, so he couldn't follow it. So he followed on the Pennine Way, and actually he'd slipped, not on an icy section, but just on a wet, slippery section of rocks, and hurt himself, and actually DNF'd then at Alston because of that, which was a shame, but fair play to him. He wasn't bitter about it at all, which is good. So yeah, anyway, headed up the road and down the road, and just as I got to the point where the road brings you back onto the trails, I'd caught up with Michael and John Boothman, saying hello to them, and I was really actually quite keen to walk with them, but they were having a really good faff, and I don't like standing still and faffing on the hill, so I just plodded on. I've tried not to go too fast, expecting them to catch up with me, and they weren't catching me, and the clag was really, really bad. You couldn't see a thing. Even when you're on the tarmac road, you could barely see each side of the road. It was really, really hard to see, and I actually managed to then walk past a turn, a 6 foot high clear signpost, but I couldn't see it. I realised I didn't go very far past, and I came back down to it. When I came back down to it, I could just make out the head torches of the other two guys coming up the trail towards me, and so I just stood and waited for them, because it was just getting really, really hard to see, and I thought we'd be better off being together. I think Michael led a bit, and then John took over the lead and just did an absolutely sterling job. It was so disorientating in the clag and the mist, and John put on a really fast hiking pace. I was like holding on at the back, just trying to not lose them, and it was early hours of the morning by this time, and I was really tired. I was trying not to fall asleep, having a few hallucinations, and just really holding on to the back of John and Michael, and eventually we're on the descent down into Dufton, and I've rarely been so happy to arrive somewhere as what I was to get into Dufton. So things were hurting. I was definitely tired. Went into the cafe, had a big breakfast there, and definitely owe John one, because he very, very kindly picked up the bill there. I'm not sure what I've done to deserve that. He's very kind. Bill was just leaving. Bill Johnson's just leaving as I got in there, and had some food, and then had a little nap, sat on the windowsill there, and just really trying to wake myself up. And then the guys reminded me that there was actually a checkpoint in Dufton in the town hall that I had to go to. So I thought, okay, I'll have a stroll along to there. And wonderfully, as I got there, there's this, because crazy young lady outside who was Mel, my friend on the safety team. And so went in and had a chat. And Mel in her day job is an osteopath and actually treats me and my crazy legs in between races and tries to put me back together. And out on the course, Mel has been treating anybody and everybody who she came across who needed a bit of treatment. So she gave my legs a good bashing. I had a few cups of tea, and I set off from Dufton like a new man. I felt absolutely amazing. Up Crossfell on my own. Actually had a good time going up Crossfell down to Greg's Hut. So John Bamber had some of his infamous chili noodles, and nice long downhill hike into Alston. Got a nice photograph taken along the way there, and yeah, I actually had a thoroughly pleasant day and arrived in Alston in really high spirits. Probably about half an hour of daylight left as I got into Alston, so it wasn't too much daylight wasted there. And just, yeah, that was really good. So I'd planned now to have a longer sleep in Alston, thinking that, there's a chance of pushing on after I leave Alston all the way to the finish without sleeping anymore. So I think I had 4 hours luxurious long sleep in Alston, and just again just so well looked after everywhere you go. And again, both at Middleton and Alston, I'd ended up with a medic on each foot, which is such an experience. Especially I think it was in Middleton, where one medic had really warm hands and the other medic had really cold hands. And I feel so strange when one's on each foot. Every time the cold hand touches, your body tries to tell you it's pain, and you're trying not to flinch because they're both sticking needles into your toes at the same time. And yeah, it's quite painful, but it's what your feet need. So you get it done, and you crack on. So coming into Alston, I had 2 double portions of the famous Alston lasagna. I must say, in Middleton, I had the chicken curry, which was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, double portions of Alston lasagna. So I think that counts as 4 portions on my way in and 2 more portions on my way out. And yeah, that was good. That was quite a reasonable turnaround. Got going from there, the bag repacked, all the usual things done, and then from Alston up, and again I knew this next part would be hard because I'm heading out in the night now, because I've arrived there maybe 4:30 p.m. so even with 4 hours sleep, I'm heading back out around 10 p.m. And 10 p.m. is fine. It doesn't feel too bad, but when you get to 3 a.m, 4 a.m, you can start to feel a rather tired. So this time I was bumping into Doug and Dave. We kept sort of toing and froing because I was sticking with my hiking and they were jogging a bit and then hiking a bit slower than me on the uphills. So yeah, so Doug and Dave and I we kept bumping into each other. Dave had some issues with tendinitis, actually on the side of his ankle. So he was hiking with a bit of a strange gait. But we all ended up at Greenhead around the same time, and ended up in the toilets there, getting a bit of a rest, and I brewed up a meal and a cup of tea in the ladies' toilets. It's quite a famous spot for people to stop, but that was good because you boil up some water there, because one of the things I was getting concerned about on this stretch was the lack of places to get clean water. So as I set off from there, we then actually saw, I presume it was somebody from the safety team. There was a van, there was a lady, and she was handing out water. I think she was safety team. So yeah, I got a bottle filled up from there, and the idea being from there I could push on to Honeystead Farm, and then got on to Hadrian's Wall. Now I had just eaten quite a big meal, and it was just getting light, So I expected to kind of my energy to start picking up at this point, and it didn't. And I really struggled along the up and down of Hadrian's Wall. And then we got onto the diversion, which just went on and on and on. And it was my second really, really low point in the race. I mean, some of the night navigation and some of the clag was really hard, just trying to stay awake and things. But, the first low point being when my feet were in such a state that I thought it might be race over. And then this was the second low point, this seemingly endless diversion. However, I did have one huge lift on this. As there was part of the diversion that was running parallel with a road, and I could see on the road a car just almost abandoned at the side of the road, a little white car, and I could see a grey-haired person walking across the middle of what looked like a random field, didn't look like a path or anything, then coming up to the wall next to the path that I was on. And as I got closer, I thought, that person looks familiar. And as I got closer again, it turned out it was my Auntie Lynn, who I rarely see. And okay, I wasn't a million miles away from where she lives in Prudhoe, but it's just absolutely fantastic, again, for somebody to come out and see me and just say hello. It's she'd been told by my parents she definitely couldn't bring me anything. There's nothing like that going on, but it's just so wonderful that somebody would take the time out of their day just to come and say hello. So that was fantastic, and that lifted me for a good while till I continued to fight with this diversion, and just found it really, really mentally tough. And I could even kind of look at myself from the outside and think, why are you making such a big deal about this diversion? It's just the same kind of ground you would be on anyway. And I don't know, it just felt different because it wasn't the Pennine Way. And then it was a strange little boggy section, and I managed to take a wrong turn where when you look on the map it looks impossible to take a wrong turn. But in my head at the time it made sense. And then I had to trudge back across the muddy field and go through some more mud to get back on track. That wasn't very satisfying. But eventually I got off this godforsaken diversion. And the diversion was completely necessary. There's been a lot of trees down with Storm Arwen, and the team would work really, really hard to get the race on at all. And I completely appreciate that. But at the time, I did not appreciate it in the slightest, I have to say. But I got into Hornistead Farm, which is just an amazing place. So literally these people have a farm, and they have a room where they invite anybody on the Pennine Way 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to come into this room. There's a kettle there, there's a fridge there, there's all kinds of food there, there's an honesty box. They just ask that you sign the guest book. There's comfortable chairs to sleep in. Eugenie certainly had a nice sleep there. Unfortunately, that was the end of his race. And so I went in there, and because the spine race is on, there was a lovely young lady there dishing out soup. And one of the things that I hadn't thought about enough before the race, I had a really good nutrition strategy that actually really worked for me. So I had a mix of things in my pack, all in the front of my pack, accessible snacks that I could snack on continuously, and I ate a lot, and it was important that I did. So I had my homemade energy balls. I've got a set of videos showing how to make them that I really need to publish. So homemade energy balls, and then I had Voom bars, which kind of like gels but better, less package waste. So for each section between the checkpoints, I think I had 7 energy balls, 6 Voom bars, then I had 3 Cheer Charge bars, 1 or 2 other, well in fact at least 2 other chocolate bars, just for variety and a change, then 6 dates, Medjool dates, big ones, and that's about the 3,000 calories that we're supposed to carry. And then I also had my dehydrated meals, which were anywhere between 600 and 1,000 calories in one of those on top of that. So I was cycling through these things. So I'd have like one energy ball, then one Voom bar, then one chair charge, and then a date, and then back to an energy ball and through, and then have a chocolate bar this time and 2 flavours of Voom bars, and kind of cycle through like that, and it was working. I was eating a lot, I was drinking plenty, had all the right kind of nutrients in there as far as I could tell. But I had heard about this, but because I hadn't gone this far before, what I didn't really think about was how sore my mouth would get, and so my mouth was starting to get sore. And so though none of this food was like crisps, not that kind of hard, I was just dreaming of soft bread dipped in soup. And that's what I got when I went to Hornistead Farm. Soft bread dipped in soup. You can't get anything softer than that to go into your mouth. I am thinking that, next time I would probably take some figs. It's another really nice soft fruit that I can take. And probably some marzipan as well for the later stages when my mouth's getting sore. That's things like that are really, really soft, just for a change, for a break. The Voom bars just kind of dissolve in your mouth, but when you first put it in there, they can have a bit of a sharp corner on them, and that just felt like it was cutting my tongue or my gums inside of my mouth. I still ain't managing to eat them, getting through everything. And then in Hornistead Farm, one of the guys from the Spine Media team was there, and he was asking me about the race, and so that's when I told him the story, which ended up on the day 7 updates, or the 7th update. It wasn't day 7 anyway. The 7th update they did. So what I'd said was that I'd been working a long time to do this race. And it's Christmas. I'd bought my wife and kids pretty much everything they asked for. Really nice stuff for Christmas. And when they were asking what I wanted, I said, look, if I get to the end of the Spine race, I want yous to be at the finish in Kirk Yetholm. That's all I'm asking for. I don't need any material things. I just like you to be there at the finish. And yeah, he videoed me saying that. And that came out to play again later on. And I also said to him, if you want some comedy footage, video me when I stand up after having been sat down for 10 minutes and see how I stagger about. I mean, I staggered out of there so badly that I even forgot where the route went. Slightly strange, the GPX did not follow the Pennine Way and went randomly through some farmyard that it didn't need to go through rather than following the Pennine Way, and that really confused me. It's very confusing when you've been sat down in semi-civilization for a while and you go back into the wild. It's fine when you're out in the wild for 20 hours. Your head just kind of follows the trail, and you often don't even need to look at any navigation. It just becomes a sort of natural way of moving around through the landscape. But not after you've been in civilization. You come out again, it's bewildering and feels strange. So yeah, Hornistead Farm, that was brilliant. And then shortly after that, I saw Gary Marlowe and some of the other spine safety guys. And I asked them not to talk about the diversion. It was probably the least friendly I'd been to anybody when they asked me about the diversion. I certainly tried to stay friendly through the whole thing, and because I was having a holiday. That's what it's all about. Yeah, a bit of fundraising for mountain rescue while I'm there, but really I'm there for a holiday. I'm there for a good time. Hanging out with my friends on the trails. So it's not particularly far from there into Bellingham, and checkpoint 5, greeted out on the hills by a lovely young lady and guided in on again a slightly alternative route to avoid going onto the road, which is a good idea. Down into Brownrigg and into the checkpoint, and I have to say it's the checkpoint I probably knew the least about, as to how it was organised and things. So Sharon and Debs in there. Of course, didn't recognise Debs at first because I was so out of it. So this is a point where my lack of experience let me down a little bit, in that what I should have done was just got all my kit sorted the way I'd done every time before and just shut my eyes for 15 minutes and then got going again. And people kept asking, what time do you want to go back out? Because there was so much tree fall in this area they couldn't find a safe way to reroute other than on the Pennine Way, and so they'd actually decided that from Bellingham up to Burness would actually be driven. So I knew I had a 25-minute sleep while I was in the car there, and I just kept trying. I was trying to do the maths in my head about, because my family had said they were going to be at the finish, that they'd got an Airbnb, and I knew by this time they were actually up in the area within 20 minutes of Kirk Yetholm, and I actually didn't want to finish too early because it's just kind of a bit unfair on the family. And so I was trying to work out, do I have an hour to sleep, or do I need to crack on? And I was asking other people, well, how long does this section take? It's not that far. It's a marathon, so it's kind of like a mountain marathon going over the Cheviots. Should take about 8 hours, but the Cheviots are really, really boggy, and so everyone's saying no, it's going to take more like 12 hours. It's like, okay, well, I don't really have any time to spare then. So yeah, I kind of faffed around a bit too much when I could have had another good 10 or 15 minutes sleep. So Doug and Dave were in the checkpoint at the same time, and we were going to be heading out at pretty much the same time. And I said to them, I said, actually, I'm quite keen to team up with somebody for this last night because I'm struggling with tiredness. I know I can get myself there, but I'd rather work with somebody. And David had a bit of a bad experience the night before on his own, so he said, yeah, let's team up. And then Doug headed out, and actually Doug had a really quick finish, and I think took a couple of places over the Cheviots. So good on you, lad. Well done. Good, really good finish. So yeah, Dave and I headed out together up into the Cheviots. The first bit was another little bit of diversion because of fallen trees. The very, very first part of that was very straightforward, and then it got a bit weird. And that's where I really fell out with my old Suntour watch, that it just wasn't giving me my position accurately. So using my handheld GPS, and that was doing some strange things as well. And so I was really, really pleased I'd partnered up with Dave at this point, who's probably thinking, who is this guy? None of his navigation stuff seems to be working right. And I was just all having a bad moment. But we worked together. We got ourselves on track, got onto the Pennine Way, and just started working through the night. And I've never had hallucinations like them. I was so tired. I was constantly seeing hallucinations, and I knew there were hallucinations. They weren't scaring me or anything. It was entertaining in one way. I was walking along and saying, Dave, it decided me right now. My brain is telling me there's a building right there, and it's got this panelled fence, and it's got these windows, and it's got a bit of a driveway, and I could describe to him what my peripheral vision was creating for me at the side of me while we're walking along. There's just all kinds of crazy hallucinations, and I was really struggling to stay awake. And eventually Dave gave me some Pro Plus. I took one of them, and I felt the focus sort of snap in, and that helped for about 10 minutes. And then eventually I had to say, look, I'm going to have a 2-minute trail nap. There was some heather just where we were. He says, please watch over me. Don't let me go for more than a minute, 2 minutes. And I lay down. He'd decided he was going to let me go for 5. But I think after 2 minutes, he moved one of his feet. And in my head, it sort of said, I wonder if he's going to kick me awake. And I just jumped up and said, right, let's go. And that was it. I was wide awake, and I was good to go to the finish then. I think this, we'd passed Hut 1 by this time. We pressed on. We came to the corner where you can turn off up to the summit of the Cheviot. Pressed on down to, I say down, it still feels like you're going uphill to Hut 2. So there's a little bit of down and then some more up. And then lots and lots and lots of muddy paths, boggy paths from Hut 2 over the last little rise, and then drop down to the road. And then in our tired state, and GPS is messing around with both of us. I think his batteries just went flat or something at this point. We managed to walk into the farm instead of going down to the bridge. And then eventually I worked it out, and I said, no, we've got to go back. And we're looking at the time, and we have the chance of finishing in under 5 days. but it's going to be tight, and it's going to be like seriously tight. We'd worked this out actually when we were at Hut 2. We'd sort of said to the safety team that were there, how long does it usually take to get down from Hut 2? And they said about 3 hours. I said, okay, well, if we're down in 2 3/4 hours, 2 hours 45, we'll be in under 5 days, which would be great. It's just, it's more significant than saying, oh yeah, it took us 5 days and 10 minutes. Actually, it took us 3 minutes less than 5 days. We were under 5 days. And that was it. It was like, right, we want to make that. And so we wasted a good 10-15 minutes messing around, walking in the wrong direction around this farm. We got back on this trail, got over the trail and got onto the road. Once we got on the road, we said, right, we're going to have to run now. So by this time, I've walked 260 odd miles, no tendinitis. Yes, I was in pain. Things were hurting all over the place. Calves are like bricks. Really, really tired. Dave's in quite a lot of pain with his ankle. And I said, okay, well, let's just start a bit of a jog. Let's make sure we get there in under 5 days. So we started jogging along. I think I took 3 steps and my tendinitis kicked in on my left ankle. Just felt it straight away. And it's just like, that's just, immense that you can hike 260 odd miles and yet a few steps makes the tendinitis come on of running. And so, yeah, we start, ran the last 2 miles into the finish. I just had to keep stopping because of pain. Each time the pain got too excessive, and I was really egging Dave on, saying, come on. But we'd work together through the night. There's no way I was going to run off and leave him right at the finish. And I was FaceTiming my wife and kids. They were there waiting for me. So as we came down into Kirk Yetholm, they were stood at the top of the green, so I could hold hands with my kids and run down the green through the finish arches together. Some fantastic video of that. And then Dave and I ran up to the border hotel and touched the wall together to make sure that we finished jointly, which was great. It was great teamwork. We hadn't met before the race at all. Well, of course, turns out we've got lots of mutual friends. Dave used to do adventure racing with Sabs in particular, and that was the spine race. I mean, it was just immense. Such great times walking along, chatting with people. Great times walking on my own with my own thoughts. Sunrise that we had on Hadrian's Wall was just really quite special. I got a couple of pictures, but they don't really do it justice at all. And also coming down towards Alston from Greg's hut, the cloud was shifting around, and I got a full Brockenspector, when you get the rainbows around your shadow in the cloud, but it just moved on too fast before I could get a photograph of it. And it's just seeing things like that, like, I'm doing this, the winter spine here, and I'm seeing things like this. And yes, we had some bad weather. I mean, the first 2 days the weather was just awful, normal kind of spine, and then the weather in a lot of ways was a lot better, but each night the clag came down, and it was just you struggled to see your foot on the ground. Certainly on the last 2 nights, it was so claggy. The electronic navigation devices were absolutely essential. It was so important to be using those and knowing what you're doing with them. It was just such an amazing experience. I think I worked out that I was, with the food at the checkpoints and the food I was carrying, I was eating around 4,000 calories a day, maybe 4,500, possibly even 5,000 calories a day. As far as I can work out, a winter spine race, carrying your pack and everything, takes around 40,000 calories. So over the 5 days, I had somewhere between a 15 and 20,000 calorie deficit. So I've really enjoyed eating everything since I finished the race, and it's been really quite satisfying. And it's an interesting feeling as well that sometimes you just feel like eating, and you eat a lot, and then you kind of feel overfull, and you feel a bit sick, and you think, I shouldn't have done that. Now I've eaten like treble portions and 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches and things like that for sort of 5 days following the race, and I think I've once felt slightly overfull. So I'm really trying to allow my body to work through it and get back to normal. My back of my right knee still hurt, and the calf there's very tight, pulling on the knee. Tendonitis is kind of still there on my left ankle, but I've been to see Mel at Valley Osteopaths in Marsden, and she gave my legs a good going over on Tuesday, I think, and yeah, that kind of got things a bit back to normal. And other than this knee, I'm actually doing very well. Been back at work since Monday. Tired. I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was having a lot of naps. It was really quite special. I mean, even getting into the car to start driving back on Friday, we're driving along, and I was looking out the window, and I could see a massive hallucination. That's Sister Val. I don't think it's very safe, like me sitting here seeing these hallucinations. I could like tell you to slam on the brakes or something. I says, I'm just going to go to sleep now. And so I did. I went to sleep, woke up later on saying, we need to stop at some services. I really need to go, and then try to hobble in across the car park to go to the toilet, which was really quite urgent, and I really couldn't move very fast because of the pain in my feet. Because when I finished, the soles of my feet, they felt like somebody had been hammering them, literally hammering them with a hammer, and they were so painful. Thankfully, this is what I strongly recommend this. I had a pair of flip-flops or sliders, and all the kids now call them sliders, it seems, and really thick, soft soles on them. And they were so soft on my feet. I had to wear them around the house for the first few days, just because my feet were so sore. I couldn't just stand on a hard floor. So I had the sliders on around the house, and that would put sliders in your drop bag. I mean, they're great when you're in the checkpoints and you take your shoes off, throw the sliders straight on, and again, you're not walking around on cold floors. I definitely recommend that. And as well, the extra sleeping bag and the drop bag as well. The recovery shake for each checkpoint, and at the end, I would definitely do that again. Just really made sure I knew I was getting protein in, just to help my body start to recover. And yes, there's no way my muscles would be recovered in the short time I was in the checkpoints, but I can genuinely say my feet were getting better as things went on, and that in itself is quite remarkable. So yeah, it's the first time I've done anything as long. The longest I'd ever been out before in a sort of continuous way was my first Spine Challenger for 46 hours. I've done the Lakeland 3-day event where 3 days in a row of doing 12 hours or so, of that kind of order. But this was definitely another level. Definitely the right strategy for me to really go easy on my body. In the lead up to the race as well. The week before, it's just crazy busy. You're trying to get your kit sorted out. You've got your running kit, you've got your drop bag, you're thinking about kit check. You're trying to get all these things organised. You're trying to get your work finished off so you can be off work for a week, completely out of contact with everybody. And I decided I'm just not going to try and force myself to go to the gym or to go for a run or anything like that. I'd prioritise sleep. Make sure I had a good sleep every night. Try and not feel guilty about not doing these extra bits of fitness and things. Just really just give myself space. Be kind to myself. And that meant I slept well, and I went into it really, really rested. And I think that was really important. Also kind of probably made me a bit calmer on the start line. Just knowing I was rested. I had plenty of exercise to come. Now, obviously, if you're an elite and you're going to be running at a decent pace up at the front, I don't think it's the right thing to do. But for anybody, mid-pack, back of the pack, just make sure you're rested before you start. and relax and enjoy it and have a chat. And yeah, the weather's going to be bad, and you're going to have real low points, and you're going to struggle. But that's what happens with these things. And I just keep glancing across at my certificate, certificate of completion of the spine race. There we go. Look at that, looking good. And you can see a picture of it on Instagram, and Facebook for Running Your Stories. Got all kinds of pictures on there. I've been spamming pictures from the race all the way through. Of course, there's very few pictures in the Clag at night because there was absolutely nothing to see, and no pictures really in the worst weather either, because there was nothing to see, because it was just horizontal hill and things like that. But yeah, there's plenty of pictures from the patches of decent weather, and yes, it was good. It was good. So people ask a couple of questions. They ask, are you going to go back and do it again? Definitely sometime. Exactly when, I haven't quite decided. I'll have to decide before or when entries open. What's next? I've got the Dragons back in September. Definitely need to get some training in before then, but the priority right now is to make sure my body's really properly recovered before I start trying to do anything else silly. I kind of learned that last year. I needed some time of really easing off from things, and then hiking this spine has actually been really good. So it's a fantastic start to 2022 to start it off with a winter spine finishers medal in quite a respectable time, 119 hours and 57 minutes, like I say, 3 minutes under 5 days, and yeah, it's good. Not sure what else there is to say, so I'm going to be speaking to a few other people, some of the people that have done the challenges, some other people from the spine. I'll see how many of them want to come on and share their stories. I just wanted to get my story kind of out of the way in the way I wanted to tell it first, because otherwise I'm going to be interjecting and taking over other people's stories a bit too much. We might well be doing a very psychology focused version of the story as well, really looking into the mindset, because it's probably 90% mindset and 10% physical when you're doing something of this length. And I definitely need to do something about kit. Most of my kit worked really well. I was really pleased. Some of it was some not quite last minute, but a bit closer to the race decisions about kit than what I really wanted. So yeah, I want to share a lot of that while it's fresh in my mind, because I know people will be interested for the next race. It's such a difficult thing to get right. So yeah, there's a lot of info I'd like to share and just get it out there, and people can watch and listen as they wish. So I hope this has been interesting and informative. This is my story. I'd rather speak it like this than write it down personally. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with some more podcasts and some more guests. Thank you.